If you don't master inner peace, the world will master you. Peace is calm. It's not chaos. And so I'm going to show you how to master your peace so that way you can have it, keep it, protect it, and make sure that nothing and no one can take it away from you. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD and ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, the study of spirituality. I am also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious, both available on Amazon and Audible. When it comes to peace, what I want you to really take away from this is that peace is actually true power. When either wanting to materialize and manifest something, whether you are wanting to cultivate and create a beautiful life and relationship with somebody, whether you are simply just wanting to remain alone and practice and understand true personal fulfillment, peace, it always comes down to peace. That is the foundation. That is the groundwork by which you are going to build anything on. Because if you're not at peace with oneself, and if things are chaotic, if things are stressful, then whatever you build upon that will in fact be at risk of crumbling. So you have to understand that peace is actually true power. True strength is rooted in your ability to control your emotions, to manage your thoughts, to understand that life really starts from you. That is not something that you just simply experience and take as it is. But you understand that though, yes, you are experiencing life, it is a reflection of the self. And so when you understand the importance of cultivating your peace, mastering your peace, protecting your peace, then you recognize that as the source of the experiences that you are having in life, you are then projecting out a tranquil, a calm, a peaceful radiance, vibration, frequency. And thus, everything you then experience from that place of peace will also return back to you as being peaceful. You see, your outer life is a reflection of your inner life, your inner state of being. So once you recognize that if peace is something that is important to you, and that's something that we often recognize later in life, is not something we really identify in the beginning stages of life, even our 20s, 30s, but more so in our 40s and after, we recognize the power and the beauty of peace. Then you begin to put up, particular boundaries and understandings and standards to basically cultivate and protect that peace. Okay, so mastering and understanding peace starts with mastering peace within. It's not about just simply putting up the boundaries for other people to recognize, though that is very important, but you must start with the peace within first, because if you have boundaries up, right, with your idea of what peace looks like for other people to recognize, but you still haven't mastered it within yourself yet, then you basically just look like somebody who's putting up walls, right? You're putting up walls and you're not allowing for vulnerability, authenticity, and deep connection. But first, as you recognize that the peace must be cultivated from within, it must be mastered within, then you understand that, okay, now you have to master your emotions. You have to recognize those emotional triggers. You have to know how to balance, the positive emotions with the negative emotions, right? Pleasure, pain, you have to balance those things out. Happiness, anger, you have to balance those things out. You have to recognize when you feel fear as one of the most powerful emotions and feelings that takes us off our path. You have to recognize and identify things like fear, because fear is the biggest threat to your peace. It is the biggest obstacle that we often face along this spiritual journey. So you have to be able to recognize that. And that's why it's important to recognize that later on in life, you start to be able to, right? Because you've experienced that those states of mind, right? You've been able to have experiences of understanding as to what triggers you, what bothers you, what irritates you, what infuriates you. And so when you have the experience of recognizing these things, then you can say, you know what? I notice that when this happens, I feel this way. When I feel this way, then I am no longer productive or aligned with who I know myself to truly be. That's the objective here. Peace is really an expression of ultimately coming into an understanding of your true self, because your true self is that of peace. You are a peaceful being. You are a loving being. You are a divine being. Your true self is not chaos, is not stress, is not anxiety, is not depression. So when you are able to master things like your emotions, things like your thoughts, recognizing that your thoughts may not be in alignment with what your true desires are, recognizing that your true desires are an expression of your true self. So if your thoughts are one of not feeling like you want to go out and be active, or you don't want to eat clean and you want to eat a particular diet, or you have, some kind of toxic traits within your relationships that you are constantly expressing, but yet you want to be healthy, but yet you want to be in a loving, connected relationship. You have to recognize the disconnection there. You may want a amazing, successful business, right? Great finances. But if you have a bad habit of spending your money on frivolous things and not investing it, not putting it into your own business or yourself or your own ideas, then there's a disconnection there. So you have to recognize your thoughts and how they align with what it is that you desire. Master those thoughts. Recognize and be able to identify the thoughts, or be able to recognize when you're having those negative thoughts, those misaligned thoughts. Be able to then counteract them with thoughts that align with what you desire. Practice things like affirmations. Practice things like self-hypnosis, autosuggestions, to reprogram your subconscious mind so that way your subconscious mind will then align your conscious mind with that which you desire. That is what mastery looks like. Okay. Then you want to get into mastering your reactions to things. That's also a product of the subconscious. Reactions come from subconscious programming. Things that something has happened to you that has implanted, installed, programmed a signal, a mechanism, right? A reflex that allows you to react without thinking. Because when that event happened, you weren't equipped with the tools to process those things intellectually, right? Oftentimes we're talking about things that happened when we were children and we just didn't have the emotional intelligence, right? We didn't have the intelligence to really process and think things through and make sure that we come to a conclusion from that situation that actually supports you being in alignment with your true self and expressing things like, being able to identify, okay, this is not my fault. This is because that person has a misalignment themselves and they did that to me. Therefore, I'm not going to take that situation as something that represents who I am. You see? So when you are going through this process of mastering a piece, you have to master those reactions as well. You have to look within and heal those things. Look within, even do some past life regression techniques, which is a hypnosis technique to go into that experience and actually change the experience in your subconscious mind. So that way you actually change the reaction, you change the response, you change the program. Okay. So understanding that you must master peace within, daily practices, stillness, mindfulness, self-awareness. Those are things that you can do without any serious or any going in depth as far as techniques. It's just really being still with yourself, being and spending time with yourself without any distractions, any, technology, not even people around, just being with yourself, going within and just simply observing, watching, feeling. Using consciousness, which is in essence, consciousness is the ability to be aware, right? So now you're bringing that awareness inward toward how you process through life, how you process through situations, experiences, how you process through simply existing. Are you in a perpetual state of existing in a state of stress, chaos, or are you existing in a state of peace where you truly understand that everything is ultimately okay? Everything is ultimately fine. There's nothing for you to be stressed about. You have to be productive and do things, right? But at the end of it all, no matter which direction it goes, you'll still be okay. You'll still be here. You see, because as an infinite being, it doesn't matter what happens. You're going to still have an experience that will eventually reach what I call grand consciousness, reach collective consciousness, right? As we transcend through this life, as we ascend from this life, we bring that experience up, right? We transcend from this life, meaning that we don't end. We just simply transformed into another state, into another realm to have another experience. So when you master that understanding of peace within, recognizing that there is nothing truly harming you or taking away from your peace, but the inability to recognize that you create your own peace. So in other words, the only thing that can truly take away your peace is you. By letting things, by having a belief system that this thing is causing chaos, this thing, this person is causing me stress. You see, you have to identify that you are the source. You are in control of that peace, and not to allow other people to interrupt it. Okay. So peace looks like when it is expressed outward, recognize that peace is something that happens through actions, right? Like, for example, calm communication. That's what peace looks like. So if you are thinking, okay, now that you have mastered peace, how does that actually express itself outward? What does that look like? That's very important, right? Because some people may think that they're at a space of peace. They're at a space of, you know, spiritual achievement, but yet their communication with the universe just doesn't match. You may look at people and they may be, classified as a spiritual guru or teacher, but yet they're rude. They're always frustrated. They're always upset. They're always annoyed. They're always angry, maybe even sad or depressed. Well, does that really match, right? Understand that whatever comes out of you is an expression of what's going on within. So you have to recognize that when you master peace, it is going to look like something. It's going to actually be a experience that people can actually identify. More importantly, you can actually identify. And like I said, that looks like calm communication. So even when you may be kind of triggered, kind of irritated, you still recognize it and understand that that doesn't have to be the experience that you need to present out. You must identify how you feel, but how you express yourself should be completely different, especially when we're talking about those negative emotions and feelings. You don't want to express yourself from a place of chaos. You want to always express yourself from a place of being calm, even if you are expressing anger, frustration, disappointment, you see, hurt. You want to be able to do that. That's when you know you have mastered, this thing called peace, right? Grace under pressure is another thing. It doesn't matter what is going on. The world can, quote unquote, be falling apart around you. But no matter what, the thing that you absolutely have control over, no matter what's going on around you, is your own mind. All right? Your own peace. So recognize that is where your power lies, is not in thinking that you are going to manipulate everything in the universe in a way where there aren't adjustments that's going to be made. And a lot of times adjustments or change can be unsettling for us. But we have to recognize when you understand yourself as a divine being and you are materializing and manifesting the things that you desire, there are going to be shifts, right? If you desire something, then what you are currently experiencing has to change. Many times that change is not quote unquote smooth or perfect. And so sometimes the change can look like a dramatic drop in a vibration, in a frequency, and an experience where all of a sudden what you experienced you didn't enjoy, but then all of a sudden it just gets worse. And then when you understand and cultivate peace, you recognize that as the shift. Once that change happens and it drops and it gets a little bit worse, then it'll increase and it'll bounce right back up. And then you will ascend to a whole nother level of experience with this life. So you have to recognize that being graceful is very important because it signifies your ability to recognize how powerful you are. It doesn't matter what's happened. Always be graceful. Always be calm. Always be compassionate and even loving, even when people are trying to attack you, trying to harm you. Now, don't get me wrong. Keep your distance. Be mindful about what those people and individuals are trying to do to you. But understand compassionately that they are doing it because they themselves haven't mastered peace. They haven't mastered self-love. So while you are protecting yourself, protecting your peace, you want to make sure that you keep that in mind so that way you have a level of understanding and appreciation and compassion and empathy for the other person. Okay. And that also, it feeds into you being calm. It feeds into you being graceful under pressure, recognizing that they are human, right? Though still spiritual, but they're on their own spiritual path, whether it's unconscious or conscious, and you recognize their journey. Your job isn't to judge them. Your job is simply to create a space for you to blossom and grow. Create a space for you to protect and cultivate your own peace. You see? So it's important to understand that when you are a person who masters peace, you also are a person who becomes magnetic. You are a beacon. You are somebody who may begins, attracting other people, right? That you feel safe around. You start attracting other people who inspire you. You start attracting things and places and people and situations. They're all drawn to you because you have a sense of calm and being collected and being at peace, you see? So sometimes being at peace will show itself at the worst times. That's what it's supposed to look like. You see, anybody can be at peace when things are perfect, but you identify a person who has mastered their peace when things, quote unquote, appear not to be perfect, when things look kind of messy, when things look a little chaotic. Okay. So understand that that is when you are able to identify within yourself that you've mastered peace. When things go wrong, you have faith, you have a sense of understanding and recognition that, hey, it's okay. Especially as you are moving forward to be, of course, proactive and responsible to fix, to do whatever you have to do, whatever you can do, and then you let it go. You're not attached, right? You just do whatever you have to do and you continue to move on with however you desire to live your life, whatever you desire to materialize and manifest. Okay. So it's never allowing to your peace to be disturbed whatsoever, no matter what happens. That is what this comes down to. When you can, like we said, we identify that it's easy to be peaceful when things are easy and smooth and going well. that is a time to practice and cultivate that. Because, like I said, we're talking about life. Change is inevitable. Shifts are going to happen. Desires that you wish to manifest are going to be created. That is change. And so when you are in a place where things are cool and you're at peace, that is the best time. Many times we tend to neglect our spiritual practices and techniques when things are well, you know, but when things are well, that is the time to do the most practice. That is the time to have the most intention with mastery over your peace, over your thoughts, over your emotions, over your manifestation skills and power. So you have to continue to practice that, because sometimes things is going to happen. It can be something small in your house with the kids or with your partner, or something can just go wrong or shut off or what have you. And recognize that is the opportunity to put in practice the mastery of peace, the ability to stay calm, to be calm and collected, because those are opportunities that's going to lend itself to when you are in a situation where it can be complete chaos, and where most people would have lost their mind. You are stoic, you are calm, you maybe even be laughing and smiling at the moment. You see, that is what mastery of peace looks like. Okay. It is sacred. It is something that is sacred to you. It is something that you protect. It is something that you are intentional about. So intentional that no matter, again, what happens, it is clear that you are keeping that protected and you are expressing and living that. All right. Another important thing is being able to set boundaries. So with the boundaries, yes, you recognize that you can literally put yourself in any situation when you master peace and you'll still experience peace. Okay. But then there are certain kind of situations or relationships that you really want to make sure it's cultivated and nurtured, and it's an environment where it's just simply peace, right? It's just what it is, right? Whether it be your home, where you sleep at, your bed, where you work at. If your environment at work is not one of peace, then you might consider getting another job. You can still master your peace and be an expression of that mastery at work. But if you desire to shift and say, you know what, I am mastering my peace at my job, but it still takes effort. It still takes some energy. I just don't feel like doing it. That's when you decide to make a shift and you change. You say you either go get another job, a different job, or you create a job. You create a means by which you are having a space of peace and still providing for yourself financially and creating whatever amounts of money that you desire. You see, in relationships, boundaries may be put up, because when you're in a relationship, especially if you're in a long-term relationship and you're committed to each other, you recognize that people change, right? You evolve, your partner will evolve, and things will change, and there will be some shifts in the relationship. And then you identify, though, these are the boundaries that I have as far as how to keep my peace and make sure that I can be the best person, right, available at this time, and the best partner. And you want to also provide that for your partner as well. You see? So boundaries are very important. If you are not dating, if you're single, boundaries is very important, especially when you're going on a dating scene and you're really getting into creating and cultivating a relationship with somebody, that you make that clear. Like, hey, I like you, but my peace is much more important. So these are some things that may challenge my peace. These are things that are taking away from my peace. These are things that are making my peace more difficult to maintain. These are things that actually add to and bring and cultivate and bring value to my peace. So these are things that I would love, if you are able to bring to me, and vice versa, of course, right? So staying grounded, staying very mindful, grounded, stable when it comes to challenges is another thing. You really want to make sure that, when challenges come up, that, with challenges, it's not quite the same as when change happens in life. When I think of challenges, I think of things that we intentionally go through to achieve a certain outcome, to achieve a result. And so, with the difference between changes in life, they're unexpected. You could just be doing something that's just been normal, routine, and then all of a sudden things happen, things change, it's unexpected. That's a higher level of mastery, of your peace. But when you are engaged in challenges, when you are pursuing a goal, a dream, challenges are going to come up. That's basically what a goal is pushing through challenges, doing something you haven't done before to achieve something you desire. So in that way, it's a little bit easier, but it's intentional as far as how to master your peace, because the challenges are coming. It's interesting when people want to achieve a goal, they have a dream, a desire, a passion. But then once the challenge comes, they are surprised or they are derailed and discouraged and they want to quit. And it's like, wait, but this is your dream. This is your desire. So let's keep moving. That's what the challenges is. That's what the whole point of this is. The challenges are going to come. We need to be ready. We need to be looking for the challenge, So recognize that you just need to be grounded in your peace as you are going after those goals, right? As you are achieving those desires and what it is that you wish to materialize, and just keep moving forward. Now, this is very important because we already discussed how peace starts within and it expresses itself out. So let's come back to that in the sense of recognizing that it is your inner world that creates your outer world, right? Your outer reality. So when you choose your inner world, you have to be intentional about choosing that, a state of peace, over recognizing too much of the outer chaos that may be going on. The truth of the matter is, reality is often skewed, viewed differently than it actually is. Some people think this physical reality is real, that there's power here. But the truth of the matter is, the inner world that is within you, that is reality. Okay? This is a simulation. This is a projection. This is almost like a hologram. Okay? So recognize that. Recognize that the reality that has the most power, the most significance, the reality that you should be focusing on is the one within. So think about that. Keep that peace within you, recognizing that all this is not real. Okay? I know we define it as real. The language of it says this is real, but when we're on the spiritual journey, we have to shift the way we see things and recognize that, hey, there's something else going on, right? When we get into metaphysics, okay, meta means beyond the physical. So we're going beyond that, because beyond that is actually where the true power is. You see? So the bottom line is here, recognize that your peace is your power. Anything that we talk about relating to spirituality is grounded in cultivating a state of peace. There's not many things that you can materialize, create, achieve from a place of chaos. Okay? Things will move around, things will shift, but ultimately it's not sustainable. You're going to burn out, and it's just highly too stressful and unnecessary. And it exerts too much energy. It's a waste of energy. So when you understand that the power of peace is within you, not just simply what you're experiencing in the outside reality, right, in the simulation, then you understand that is what you need to protect. You protect that simply by just being mindful. You protect that simply by creating understanding that it is through peace that you actually create the things that you desire. Okay? Peace is just not for the moments of meditation and stillness. That it's just not for that. Okay. Peace is a way of living. It's a way of being. And so it is a constant thing. So you are constantly thinking about your peace. In the beginning, it can be work. Whenever you're shifting and changing your understanding of reality, it's effort to constantly be thinking of these things. But eventually it becomes a natural state of who you are, right? Because you've tapped into your consciousness and that truth of understanding, you know? So just continue to practice peace daily, be mindful, and just simply just continue to watch your world just transform. Okay. Watch your world transform, because you cultivating peace, you mastering peace, you protecting your peace. Trust me when I say, when you understand the significance of that, you understand the significance that nobody, nothing can actually take your peace away from you. Yeah, you're human. So you're going to get hurt. There's going to be some moments of frustration, anger. Okay. Those emotions are valid, but those emotions are momentary, right? They're temporary. Peace, though, is the backdrop that makes sure those emotions are momentary. When you don't have peace and you experience, say, hurt, say, anger, those things tend to linger for a longer period of time. But when you master peace, you recognize that, hey, this is not a big deal. You acknowledge it, even appreciate those things, because that is part of the spiritual experience. But you recognize that if you keep your peace protected, cherished, valued, honored, it doesn't matter what happens in life. You'll pull through. And you'll pull through even bigger and better than you could possibly imagine. So protect your peace like your life depends on it, right? Because it does. Life, your quality of life, does depend on your peace. And when you protect that, you ultimately create a space where you can radiate, vibrate, manifest, materialize the life that you want. Okay. When you live from a place of in a calm, you create a world that you no longer have to escape from. You simply can just enjoy and live. Stay rooted, stay powerful, and stay at peace. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook, The Power Within, and so much more. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.